Welcome to the Mount Pleasant Podcast, featuring discussions and interviews about the people, places, and events that make Mount Pleasant such a special place.
This is the Mount Pleasant Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Cleary, and all thanks to the great people of Mount Pleasant Magazine, I get the honor, the privilege of introducing you to Mount Pleasant, the people who make it such a special place to do business, to work, and even to live. We're introducing you to Mount Pleasant's best on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. The saying is that there's a new sheriff in town, but actually the new sheriff is in Charleston County. Carl Ritchie was elected to that office back in November. That created an open seat on the Town of Mount Pleasant Council, and that seat was recently filled in the special election by the guy who is our guest today here on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. I'm Brian Cleary, joined by now Councilman Mike Tinkey. Councilman, first of all, congratulations on winning. Mike, what was it that made you think, you know what, I should run for this town council seat?
Thank you, Brian. It's delighted to be with you. You know, as a 42-year resident of the town, a father, a grandfather of 6, all living around me, I knew I wanted to make sure that this wonderful place had its small town feel, had its sense of community, had its sense of camaraderie as we worked forward following our comprehensive plan and really worked very hard to keep that small town feel for the future. And so it really was for my children's children that I ran, and I'm delighted to have them all around me today.
Well, we'll talk about some of the issues, some of the things that you want to help with in the town of Mount Pleasant. But let's set that aside for just 1 second. And can you give me an idea? What is it that you think you bring personally to the Mount Pleasant Town Council?
Well, first, I'd like to thank everybody that voted for me, and even those that didn't this last time. You know, it was a good turnout for a special election, more than normal. And so it's really important that I reach across the aisle, as they say, in a non-partisan race, so that we work hard for all of Mount Pleasant. So the first thing I'd like to do is make sure we have civility, harmony, and we work for common ground on issues that are really important for all of us. And a lot of those things are the things that confront us when we drive in the streets, when we go out in the boat, we walk through the countryside, the little bit of countryside we have left, and we just enjoy our town, you know. And so I think there's a lot we can do together to make the town, you know, just a better place, and creating a sense of community in each of our different areas as I work hard for the whole town is what I really intend to do. And I hope people feel that I'm open and that my track record of working together on getting key issues like the noise ordinance passed, the tree ordinance, the community forest master plan, all with unanimous votes, shows that I'm having a willingness to listen, learn, and work together with all.
Well, I think you're reaching out and even saying the people who didn't vote for you, you're still here for there. There were 10 people in that special election. You won the vote, so now you're in place. One of the things that I've heard about you in terms of people that I've talked with about Mike is that you're a consensus builder. You kind of touched on that. Do you agree with that, that description of you?
Well, I agree. And in my first town council meeting, which was on Patriots Annex, which is an important project. It's our union pier, so it's important that we get it right for the future. We could have gone to vote. It was at a final reading. We could have gone to vote at the last one, and it would have been a divided vote. I'm not sure which way it would have gone. It was up and down. The point is, we need to have more consensus. So I made a motion that we take a little more time. We go, as in a lawyer's terms, go into a page turner where we go page by page through the development agreement, and we come up with something that avoids the Carolina Park of today, where you have an issue where you really got your hands tied, and as a town, you really can't do anything about it. You know, it's such a precious piece of property, Patriots Annex, that we want to make sure we have micro-mobility, we have protection of our living landscapes, our seashores. We want to make sure we have tree canopy and plenty of public space, waterfront to enjoy. So consensus is building. Started at my first town council meeting, and I think we got a 6-2 vote, and it almost was a 7-1 vote, just to take the time and get things right.
In 1982, it was East Cooper Magazine. Now it's Mount Pleasant Magazine. Mount Pleasant Magazine is about the people, places, and events that make Mount Pleasant a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Your community, your magazine. Mount Pleasant Magazine.
You're listening to the Mount Pleasant Podcast.
You read about it in the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine. Then we go a little deeper here on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. I'm Brian Cleary, joined by the newest member of the Town of Mount Pleasant Council. Mike Tinkey is our guest today here on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. So, Mike, you've been around Mount Pleasant for more than 40 years now. You've seen a lot of change in the town, some of it, I'm sure, positive, some of it maybe not so. As you join town council, let's maybe take one, two, or three issues. Tell me something, give me the one thing, one of the things perhaps, that you think is most right at the top of what council needs to do right now.
Well, I do think in any way that we can, we bring people together on common issues. And there are some common issues. Some of them are really working so that we can live, work, and play close to home, so we can avoid the traffic and the work and the difficulty we have going back and forth long distances. And so I think working on the infrastructure and the traffic and working together with people so that we develop these hubs or places where we can live, work, and play is part of the comprehensive plan. And certainly that would be one that I would look forward to. I would support our increase in green space. And that means as simple as a tree in your neighborhood where there used to be one that you loved and it's gone, and putting that tree back, or with a community forest master plan, replanting the forest that used to be much more indicative of what we love and makes the Lowcountry home. A specific on that is that we have only about a 25% tree coverage in the town. In the last survey, about 70-80% of town citizens said they wanted more tree cover, and they wanted it for all the reasons that we know you have it. And so I think getting that back, because the average town has about 40% tree cover. And Greenville thought it was terrible when they went from 40 to 36% tree cover. Well, we've got a ways to go. So working together, we formed a group called Green Neighborhoods Work, and we've been working neighborhood by neighborhood to volunteer and plant trees. So in Bell Hall, we planted about 57 trees with families working together with the children adopting trees so they could watch them grow as they grew up and went off to school. They say, well, I planted that tree, you know. And so the green space, the protecting our living shoreline and our waterways and our marshes are really important as we deal with stormwater issues and the rising tides that we have. You know, I'll be going to a Post and Courier Rising Tides event this evening, and it really focusing on what we know is happening. And so that's important to have resilience in our infrastructure, but also resilience financially. You know, these are a bit challenging times, and so we want to make sure that we have resilience in our financial state too. I think there's issues that are very specific to neighborhoods. And so it's important to listen to folks in every neighborhood. There's 39 precincts, for example, and voting precincts. Well, all 39 plus micro neighborhoods need to be listened to and find out what their specific issues are, whether that's a pothole, as they say, or whether that's an issue of traffic safety. So I think the big issues are resilience and sustainability of what makes this a special place. That may vary a little bit from people to people, but I think there's a lot of common ground there where we can work together.
Mike, obviously you were out campaigning, trying to get people's votes, and I'm sure they were giving you some feedback in terms of what they'd like to see on council. What are you hearing from citizens of Mount Pleasant in terms of, hey, this is really the issue that I'd like you to deal with? And is it always about growth?
No, one of the big issues is probably the number one issue is limiting development, or what they would call smart development. So for me, that was really important that I would stand up to, special interest and different groups to limit development and make sure that where we did have development, it makes good sense. So for example, when I was on the Planning Commission, I learned a lot on the Planning Commission recently. Mount Pleasant Town Center came up. Now, it wasn't town center when I first started here. In fact, Snee Farm seemed like a long way away, but now that really is the center of the town. And so the developer rightly is looking to sustainability for that development, as perhaps the movie theater or Belk has struggles and you'd have to redevelop it. And so I've been working on planning commission and will work in various committees of town and now on town council to see that can become a live, work, and play center. For example, they have been permitted and have it in their planned development unit, planned development district, that they can have housing there. Well, that would make sense if you had housing and you could have but more green space at the same time. So the key is to find a balance of how we can have a place where people can live, where there is none today. They can perhaps work in areas right there. They can shop, but they can also linger longer in green space. It might be like a Freshfields or a Marion Square,
sure,
where there's a place that you feel like you can linger longer, maybe a cultural arts center in that area. Now, all of a sudden, it takes something that's, you're worried about it a little bit. How's it going to succeed long term, and turns it into something that's a really wonderful space with a lot of green space, but a lot of availability for things people need. And they don't have to get in the car that much. And in fact, from the neighborhoods, they could ride their bikes or walk and whatnot. So looking for smart development that really works is an important one. And that's the same whether it's in Park West, Carolina Park, or other areas where that may already exist, like Bell Hall has a little more livability, or Ion has a little bit more livability, or the Old Village a little more livability. So taking those characteristics that make it have high value, not only emotionally and from a livability standpoint, but economically too for people, I think are really important.
You're hearing today from Mike Tinkey. He is the newest member of the Town of Mount Pleasant Town Council, and our guest today on the Mount Pleasant podcast with me, Brian Cleary, where the pages of Mount Pleasant magazine come alive. Mike, we want to get off the issues for just a second here. I want to detour and maybe let people know a little bit more about you as a person. We're in the Low Country. Everybody loves shrimp. If you're going into a restaurant ordering up shrimp, how are you going to have your shrimp prepared?
Well, that's great. I haven't found a way to get it prepared that I don't like. Let's put it that way. And what I really thought was great, Brian, was it showed the resilience of the community when we had COVID. And, and a friend was out on the shrimp boats, and he would say, I've got shrimp coming in. How much do you want? And how many pounds do you want? And I thought it was so wonderful that during COVID, the shrimping community and the community came together, and I'd put the money under my mat, and he'd put the shrimp on my front porch. And I thought that was just great. And so I think it's important. I was at a women and business meeting that the town hall put it on the other day, and Cindy Tarvin was there, and Wayne Magwood's granddaughter was there, and they were talking about the importance of the resilience of that. I commend the town for buying the land and supporting the industry. I think it's important for all of us to eat more shrimp locally. And so I however you want to get prepared, I think it's important to go down the docks, buy local shrimp and support the industry, because it's important to really our culture and our way of life and our taste buds.
Yes, there is nothing better than local shrimp. Let me follow up with this. You invite me to the beach, so I'm going to follow you. Are we going to end up on the Isle of Palms, Sullivan's Island, Folly? Where's the beach for you?
Well, the good news is I have dogs, and the good news is they like going to the beach. And the good news is it's a short jaunt from here, whether I have the dogs or where I'm on my bike, to go to Sullivan's Island and really get the tag for the dogs and just let them get out and enjoy it during the hours of operation they need. But the Sullivan's Island Beach is great because they're both great, but it weaves history, but also culture, the turtles, all the different things that you have. And the neat thing is it has a lot of variety, and the forest, as well as the jetties and the different areas. So I like going to Sullivan's Island. It's very peaceful and it's easy access from where I live.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask anyway. Am I going to find you? Am I more likely to find you on the pickleball court or the golf course?
Well, that's a great question. When I came here, I was known as a tennis professional. So when I was a coach of the junior team in Venezuela, I was recruited to come to Wild Dunes by the Finch family. Now, one of the granddaughters of the Finch family who hired me is married to one of our sons, which is fantastic. So there's a legacy there. So I came as a tennis pro and I was a tennis professional, director of tennis for many years. I think any racket sport and then I was president of South Carolina Pro Tennis Association. But conversely, I was also president of the South Carolina Golf Course Owners Association. So, and spent 20 years in running resorts, whether it's at Wild Dunes as the president or Shipyard or Port Royal. So I think whatever sport that you play is get you moving. And I think it's important to get you moving, whether it's pickleball or any other racket sport or golf or the variety of things we have, including, like you said, walking on the beach. So I love them all. So I think it's important to just get moving.
This may be the most important question I ask you during our time together today. Carolina or Clemson?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm married to a Gamecock, and I've also got a granddaughter that's going to Clemson. So I have to walk the tightrope on that one. And then I was on the phone today, and this will really throw them off. Maybe the people won't vote for me at all again. So I'm on the phone with a guy, and he says, "Well, I'm an Alabama fan." He said, "Roll Tide." And I went, "Well, I hate to tell you this, but War Eagle, So I went to Auburn. So I just think it's great. We got a lot of wonderful traditions here.
The newest member of the Mount Pleasant Town Council is our guest today here on the Mount Pleasant podcast with me, Brian Cleary. We're talking with Mike Tinkey. Mike, you've been around for 42 years now in the town of Mount Pleasant. So give us that vision of yours. So many people are coming to this area. Not that you need to sell anybody, but because we're always talking about what's wrong. Tell me some things that are so right about the town of Mount Pleasant.
When I came here, almost now 43 years ago, I saw pictures of the area. I'd been here in the 70s. I date myself a little bit, and had fallen in love with it, even though it was sort of shabby chic, as they would say. It was sort of a little worn around the edges and whatnot, but it was just absolutely beautiful. That had that nostalgic small town feel. And in many ways, it has it today still. And that's because people see that and they know neighbors know neighbors. I was 30 years old or so when I moved here. And what really attracted me was a number of other young families that were just starting their families. Some of the younger ones out on their bikes or tricycles or strolling in the street, with their baby carriages. A couple little kids with their parents around them playing tennis. Now, I shouldn't say this, but playing tennis in the street, but all the parents sort of gathered around them. And everybody seemed to welcome and embrace folks. And that sense of community of knowing where your kids are, helping each other, visiting those that are ill and celebrating those that are having great times. It exists then and exists today. And that's all within a envelope of just a stunningly beautiful place to live. I mean, having the waterways around us, having the sea breeze, having the pluff mud, having our kids go down and get shrimp or crab. My grandson going down to Shem Creek and learning how to fish, and now he's working at Hadrell's as a 15-year-old and teaching other people how to fish. The fact that I have 3 grown sons and they all went away and are quite accomplished, and they all came back because they realized they didn't have something that they had in other places, a boat to get out on the ocean and in the waterways. And so they've come back, and they've found 3 great daughters in love and now 6 grandchildren between 3 and 17. So it's a place that attracts not only one family, but generations of family. And I see that happening over and over again. And I think that's the fabric that brings people together, that you work together, you play together, you worship together, and you help each other in good times and bad times. So yes, we have this stunning environment and the rest, but I think it's incumbent upon all of us to reach out to our neighbors, embrace them, and work together with them on common causes. And that's why it's important for me to hear from people what their concerns are, to know what they are, to listen to them, and see how we can provide them the resources and the things they need. Maybe if you get a chance, I sent you a link of a place on the website, on the town website, that they can go and be informed on the types of things that are that may be concerning them. But they can also call me. I'll make my cell phone available. Certainly, you can post it if you want to, and also my town email. And I hope people will reach out to me so that I can help them enjoy the things that we enjoy so much. And people have for generations. In answer to your question again, I was embraced by people that had lived here for generations. That with the first hurricane came, they said, "Well, let me tell you what we did in Hazel in 1955. Let me tell you about what we did here, what we did there," and they would invite me into their homes. And so I think it's that type of thing that's important. So I hope people will feel comfortable reaching out and know that I'm not listening to people from one neighborhoods and wherever they may live.
So people can look for that contact information, your number, email address, and it's great to hear someone in town council saying, yes, please reach out to me. I want to hear from you because that's what it's all about. You're serving. And as we've gone through the conversation, Mike, obviously you've got an amazing background in all sorts of areas. You're on town council now, but you are still owner, partner of Tinkey Timberlands. What is Tinkey Timberlands?
Well, I put it this way. They say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. And so I'm third generation. I grew up in a farm in the woods in Alabama, and my friends were the woods and the trees and the critters that were in the woods. And I walked with my grandfather. I walked with my father. In fact, I learned how to walk in the woods with my father because I didn't always obey him. I'd sort of wander off. And so he decided one time he would wander off and I couldn't find him. And so I learned how to find him because he acted like an owl. He'd hoo, 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 and I'd have to go find him. So I have these fond memories and also a little bit of stress being in the woods. But the Tinkey Timberlands is a multi-generational sustainable forestry business. And I mean sustainable because we're planting trees for my grandchildren now, and we're taking them to see the trees. We're maintaining the waterways and basically the bioways, or the ways for quail, birds of all types, the beautiful wildlife we have. And so it's a sustainable forestry business that we already have the fifth and the sixth generation alive. And so they're learning about it. And it's in Alabama and Georgia, places I grew up. And so it's important for the oxygen we have to maintain the forest. It's important for the aquifers that we need for our towns. It's important for our green space, and it's also a vital part of the industry. The industry in Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, etc. So it's a sustainable forestry business. I've learned a lot from it. And we're hoping, well, it's already been passed unanimously by the town council to have a urban forestry or a tree task force, which will be coming about soon. And we've already have in ready and available online right now. If you go to Community Forest Master Plan on the town's website, you can see a study of how we will replenish the forestry in a diverse way for the future. So whether you're enjoying a tree in your backyard, or whether you're going to a park, or you're in the business, it's a wonderful way to bring community together. One of the things that I thought was great, one of my daughters-in-law, she's a landscape architect. So when we go to the forest, she's identifying the edible plants, and she's identifying the streams and the different things that the grandchildren can learn from. And quite frankly, we learn from it too, and the different trees that are there. So it's a great. And I was recently on Rifle Range Road, and Hamlin. There's a Hamlin Park there that very few people go to. It's 57 acres, and it's a wetlands park, and it's just beautiful. So I encourage people not only for the beach, but to find the green parks, the sort of wild green parks that we have, and Hamlin's one of them. And so take a walk in the park. I found it surreptitiously, and I was dressed with a sport coat, but I had my work boots in my car, so I put them on and walked for 45 minutes with a neighbor who had an issue, and we had a wonderful time. And so I think trying to create these spaces in town, whether they're pocket parks or bigger forests, are important.
So, Mike, for Mayor Haney, who's going to be watching this interview, the other members of town council, now they know if they want to get your attention during the council meeting, they just go, ooh, ooh, ooh.
Maybe so. And you know what? If I hoo-hoo back, then we're coming together. And we're coming together for a good purpose, and I think that civility and harmony at the town council is good. I think we've got a good group of people, not always agreeing, but a good group of people. We'll be having an election in November. And I hope everybody approaches it with the idea of civility and harmony and working together to protect what's this small town feel and what makes our town so special.
In our political atmosphere these days, it's great to hear that a consensus builder has come to the town of Mount Pleasant Council. Your newly elected councilman, Mike Tinkey. Mike, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. Take care now.
And thank you for joining us today for this conversation where the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine come alive with me, Brian Cleary, here on the Mount Pleasant Podcast.
Thanks for spending your time with the Mount Pleasant Podcast, your community, your podcast. Listen to past and future episodes at mountpleasantpodcast.com.